Hi guys, it's Nicole and I'm back today with Miss Sarah Scraps herself. We are back with another Creating with Collections Volume 4 layout. Today I'm doing another type of scraplift. This one I found scrolling Facebook. Her information is down there at the bottom. If I can do an actual link, I will link my little heart out in the description box so that you guys can follow her. I saw she had some stuff on Instagram and I kind of followed back through, I want to say Facebook, to get a better image of this. Now, what I liked about her layout was she did one of my favorite things that I also like to do, which is sort of the tone on tone, match your embellishments to sections of the paper. And I think Sarah may finally be using this rainbow paper today as well. I am going to go ahead and use what I had left of that 12 by 12 sheet of this, and I'm just going to add some wood grain strips to the side to kind of fill in a little bit. And I'm actually using that full sheet of the pink pattern paper as a layout base because, again, I'm in this phase where I'm trying to get the stuff used up, and I don't feel bad about using that whole sheet as a background because I know that for me, my go-to is to just use white cardstock. And so the more layouts that I decide that I want to do, I can rely on just regular cardstock to be the background and do more like die cutting or like fun things with the scraps. Now, so again, what I was really drawn to hers was that she used my absolute favorite paper from this line, and then she did like the tone on tone thing. Now, her layout, she had done like these really cool techniques where she actually, I couldn't tell if it was like cut and then distressed or if she actually ripped between the like color sections. And it looked kind of like she had some mixed media going on and like two photos near the top, a photo near the bottom. And she had just kind of really incorporated a lot of the different die cuts and stuff. So what I took from that was the same sort of cascading element to everything. And then with me, I really like to try and get as many photos as I possibly can on a layout without it being like chaotic, I guess I would say. Printing these small enough, I felt okay getting all 6 of these in here. I am going to reprint a couple of them a little bit smaller because I ended up using 2 sizes of a Polaroid frame, so I needed to make some of them smaller because I didn't want to cut my photos down and lose some of the stuff. So I also just kind of went through and pulled out anything that I had left over. A lot of those butterflies and florals, I actually fussy cut. I had a good like 2-hour video chat with a friend recently, and I knew I wanted to focus on like chatting with her and still get something accomplished. And so I was like, you know what, I already know I need to do some fussy cutting in order to get some die cuts, in a sense, back out of this collection. So I just sat there and fussy cut and caught up on life and book recommendations and TV shows and all kinds of stuff. It was well overdue and much needed. So, and it definitely made like the fussy cutting feel less labor intensive because I wasn't focused on it. So I think this was my original printing of my photos. I'm not 100% sure. This video was a little bit disjointed because I kind of filmed things as I was going, and I was also working on another layout as well. I did not film any of the stitching. The stitching actually took me about 3 days in between a bunch of other stuff. I just kind of had laid out my Polaroids. I thought I knew where they were going to be, and I stitched sort of random lines going out from that. And then I just tried to match thread colors as close as I could to like the little stripies. I like the tone on tone. I like that it kind of blends, but it still is noticeable. It still gives you that like textured look. So, like I said, it doesn't bother me to spend 3 days stitching on something like that. And you would think looking at it that it's so simple that it wouldn't take you 3 days, but typically anytime I'm switching between colors and I'm not stitching like a predetermined like border, and I'm really kind of having to think about where my photos are going to fall, where my embellishments are going to fall. And I didn't want to stitch as I was attaching things. That drives me absolutely nuts. I just took it slower, and like I said, I'd come up here for 30, 40 minutes, put on an episode of 24, and stitch like 2 or 3 color sections, and I'd come back the next day and stitch 2 or 3 more color sections. This time I was smart enough to leave those thread colors out and set aside for any other layouts that I decide I want to stitch with this kit, so that I can save a little time like digging through all my floss, and I can just already know, you know what, these 8 or 9 colors already match, so just make sure to use these. So I was apparently getting guidance from another friend. I'm heavily okay with either video chatting somebody or sending them a photo and being like, hey, I've been staring at this for way too long and I can't make a decision. Like, is this going in the right direction? Like, I like some validation sometimes. I did cut the white layers of my Polaroids from some of those 6x8 patterns that I don't love. For me, it's a good use of those patterns. Instead of struggling to find a way to use the printed design, I would rather just use it like I would white cardstock to do my die cut layers and stuff like that. I am going to skip journaling on this one, and I'm going to skip a title on this one. Something like this in my brain is sort of what I would consider like a fun or more artsy style layout. I'm gonna have other layouts that go with this one. I'm gonna have pretty much most of the photos from this session spread out across, probably 5 to 8 layouts. And somewhere among all that, I will have the information as far as what was going on. These are actually from a spring session. Usually I do a family session every fall. And then when my kids were really little, halfway through, and it usually fell in spring, I would have our photographer do a little like spring session of just my kids, because I absolutely love her work. And they grow so fast in those like first like 5 or 6 years. So I didn't want to wait a year between photo sessions. So like when they were babies, I did every 3 months, and then every 6 months from then, basically. So I have a lot of catching up, especially with like the photo sessions. And for me, pulling those photos is an easy trick when I get down to layouts like this. Because I'm not telling a story, I'm not necessarily focused on like an event that I documented. I'm not really focused on what's happening in the photos. Again, this is more of, I just want to play, I want to have fun, I want to use stuff up, and I still want to have interesting photos. And for me, that's going to be like these sessions that my kids did. And I sometimes I tell myself that I must have already done them. And then I'll go back and look, and I'm like, no, you never got around to this one. Or I only did like one set of photos and I have 40 or 50 more. I don't feel the need to do all of them, but I do like to go through and at least get my favorites printed and put on a layout. So the other thing with these more like fun and artistic layouts is they do take me longer, because I'm kind of digging through everything. I'm making choices as I go. I wanted my Polaroid frames to blend in with those stripes. And I think I had such a hard decision trying to decide on pattern papers, which doesn't make any sense because I don't have that many left. Like the pinks especially, I knew that I needed 2. And I had a little piece of that like blush colored paper from the 6x8 pad, and then I had some of the same paper from the background. It's not my favorite. I didn't really want to use that one, but I didn't have enough yellow patterns to do 2 yellows, so I was like, you know what, we're just gonna have to we're going to have to figure it out and make it work. I was convinced I had some more of that yellow plaid, and it wasn't until I edited the video that went up previous to this and I watched myself basically use the entire thing, and I was like, oh, that's why you couldn't find it. Not that your whole kit is a mess and spread out everywhere. It's the fact that it doesn't exist anymore to you because you've already used it. So I just I dig through my scraps and I find literally anything that I possibly can. And that's probably why I actually enjoy the second half of a Creating with Collections kit more than starting with fresh supplies. I think it's just a little bit more fun for me to keep going back to some of this stuff that I haven't used and look at it with a different frame of mind. I'm in a different mood. I'm going with a different type of layout, or maybe I'm using a sketch or a scraplift or something else that is making me look at the supplies a little bit differently. I kind of want to see if I can talk Sarah into doing a Q&A at the end of this, because I've done this 4 times now, and so I kind of know what to expect as I go along. I know that I'm definitely going to continue to narrow down my likes and dislikes. I'm going to continue to discover certain elements that manufacturers put in collections that I don't like, or ones that I absolutely love, and I know that it's okay to buy multiples of because I know that I will use it. And I'm just kind of curious because Sarah's the only other one that I know that has done this from start to finish with me, especially using the same supplies. So I'm kind of curious to see if I can talk her into doing a Q&A and maybe open up a thread on my Facebook group for anybody to post questions that they have, whether it's for me or for her specifically, for both of us. I want to pick her brain and I kind of want to see what you guys think when you watch something like this. Because again, this stemmed from me missing those Kill a Kit videos from 5 or 6 years ago, when those big kit clubs were everywhere. And I don't know, I loved watching people show their kit, and they would work through it for the month, and some people would get down to what I would have considered oh, that's killed, there's not that much stuff left. And then 4 or 5 layouts later, they're still going. And it just felt really satisfying to me to watch them use it up and get so much out of it, and see how the mileage varied from person to person. So this was sort of my little take on that, but reworking it in a way that made sense to me and with products that made sense to me. I like working within a collection because I know that everything's going to work, but don't get me wrong, everybody always asks what's the next version going to use, or what are you going to use for the next volume? I never know until I make a decision. I do kind of keep a running list of ideas, and I kind of at some point want to do a stash dive one where it's not in a kit, where maybe I tell myself, okay, go find 10 pattern papers, go find 2 alphabet sheets, go find a specific list of things, and I can kind of make it almost like a recipe, and I can then share it with you guys, and you can make your own stash type of kit like that, and kind of run it more with a group element. But I still have to kind of think about things like that. But these are the things that I like to sort of discuss in my Facebook group and bounce ideas off. I think that there's a couple girls in there that had also purchased Storyteller when it came out and are kind of doing their own version of this. I don't know that everybody has the intent to completely use it up. I think some people are just using it as a kit, and they kind of come back to it when they're in the mood for it. They're not running it like this. but I love going into the album. I try not to look until I've done a couple layouts and I go post my layouts and then I go peek. Because usually when I start, I try not to go to Pinterest. I try not to go look around. I try to kind of rely on my natural process. And then usually about this time is when I'm like, let me go look around. Let me go see what other people are doing. And I'm like, oh man, that's gorgeous. Like, do I have anything left? Can I kind of take elements from this? Like, I love it. I love being inspired by all kinds of other people's examples. The last thing that I ended up doing, I think in my heart of hearts, I wanted to do rainbow hearts tone on tone with everything else, but I was running short on time. I actually finished today, edited today, everything today, and I need to post today. So my go-to is to pull out some of the wood grain that I'm still hoarding. I keep all these little pieces because I know that I can fit tiny hearts in there. I can fit teeny tiny like letters if I need to. So I was like, you know what, let's just do the wood grain. Let's go with like a neutral type of thing. And then even with these wood grain hearts, I pulled out a scrap of some of those 6x8 papers that I don't love, and I use those for my layers. I tend to like about 3 layers of the white cardstock and then a 4th layer of pattern paper. It ends up being a little bit thicker than everything else on the page, but I kind of like them to stand out a little bit just because they are so tiny. And I think if I had been willing to cut more than I cut today, I would have put them everywhere. But it's kind of one of those things where I have to tell myself to stop sometimes. It's kind of like when you're seasoning food. You're like, maybe just a little more. Sometimes it's time to put down the glue bottle and call it done. So here's my completed layout. Again, big props to the inspiration layout, and I'm going to apologize. For some reason, my detail photos did not drop into my video software very well, so they are a little fuzzy, but I will have photos in my Facebook group in the Creating with Collections album. And I will catch you guys in another video soon. Bye!